This is Jacob Does Stuff and Things. Today doing a video on, drumroll please, chess. I'll be talking about the journey to 1,000 elo and the openings to use on the way versus the openings to avoid. I'll even include a few websites to go to. This is chess.com, the main website where most people go to. I won't lie, this is probably my favorite website of the free I'm listing. There are two other main websites, Lichess and World Chess. Lichess is a French website that is kind of like underpoweredchess.com almost. World Chess is a bit better, as it has puzzles, tournaments, and is the official FIDE website, meaning that if you do well on this website, you could get an online title, which is pretty cool, but you have to buy their pro membership first. Let me show you the opening that has carried me for countless games and led me to victory countless times. This is the Italian game. There are two main variations of the Italian game that I want to cover. The Giuoco Piano, I probably butchered that name, and my personal favorite, the fried liver defense. First, let me show you the Giuoco Piano. We start with e4, followed by e5, very standard, knight to f3, knight to c6, bishop to c4, initiating the Italian game. And now our, our, our opponent will play bishop to c5, initiating the Giuoco Piano defense. We will now follow with the less expected pawn to c3, which is the main line. Now most people will play knight f6, which is the best move. However, if they don't play knight f6, they play, say, pawn to d6, then you can still follow up with the dangerous move pawn to d4. Now black captures back with their pawn on e5, and you take with your pawn on the c file. Now their bishop is under attack and they have to move it. 99% of the time, they will move it to the b4 square, checking your king. Not to worry though, as you can just block with your own bishop. Now, the best move for black is to play bishop takes d2 check. You then recapture with your knight on b1, and black follows up with d5. You take with your pawn on e4, they take back with the knight, you castle, and they castle. Now, going back to move 7, if your opponent decides to get greedy and take your pawn on e4, you have a tricky tactic. You take the bishop on b4, the knight on c6 recaptures, and now you play the amazing move bishop takes f7 check. The king captures the bishop, and now you check with the queen with queen to b3 check. Now, most people here will play d5. In that case, you can develop your knight with the move knight e5 check. Gain your knight into an outpost, with the most common move after that being king e6. Then you can take the free knight on b4 with your queen. However, if your opponent is not the best at chess and they move their king to a square other than e6, then, well, you can just continue in the same way, but you will have a more noticeable advantage. Assuming black plays a perfect Giuoco Piano, white is still up by 0.17, which might not seem like much, but is definitely a nice amount for perfect play by black. Now it is time for my personal favorite, the fried liver defense. This opening starts with the Italian game position, but instead of playing bishop b5, they play knight f6. Now it is time for the key move of the fried liver defense, knight to g5. You're threatening a fork of the rook and queen, meaning that you'll win one of those pieces if black doesn't stop you. Now, black will most likely play d5, but if they don't, then you are in a complete, even more winning position. However, after d5, you capture with your e4 pawn, and now comes my favorite part. Knight takes d5 might seem like a reasonable move, but there is a brilliant move here. Can you find it? It's knight takes f7 check. The king captures the knight, thinking that white has just blundered. However, White can follow up with the devastating check queen to f3. This is a fork, forking black's knight and their king. The only move for black that somewhat saves the position is king to e6. After that, you move your knight out to c3 to pressure the pinned knight, and you're in a completely winning position. However, many people will play the move that tucks their king into the corner, king to g8. This allows an immediate mate of free, with bishop takes d5 check, followed by queen takes d5, then your queen takes d5, they block with their bishop, and you take the bishop and finish off the mate. Now, going back to move 5, if your opponent instead decides to play knight to a5, not to worry, as you can play bishop to b5 check. The best move for black is to block with the c pawn, in which case you will then capture back with your d pawn. Then black captures back with their b pawn. You move your bishop back to d3, and you are still up by like 0.17 again, which is, like I said, still a pretty substantial thing for a perfect play by black. We've reached the final section of the video. If you're enjoying it, please make sure to hit the like and subscribe. It really helps my channel out. Now, back to the content. One opening to be sure to avoid as a beginner is the Sicilian. The Sicilian is one of the most complicated openings with so many variations that you can't really know them all as a beginner. By the way, e4 openings are just my preference, but I can't diss on d4 openings. They're great, but they lead to more close positions. I'm not the biggest fan of close positions. I like the aggressive style of the openings of e4, and that's what makes chess so fun. Chess is a game, and if you're obsessing about an opening you want to learn that's way too boring, then it's not as fun. That's why I personally don't suggest d4 openings either. However, there are a boatload of openings to be learned, and so I would be happy for you to use any opening you want, as long as it is fun for you, and is most likely not the Sicilian. Wait, we've already reached the end of the video? If you've enjoyed, as I said, make sure to hit like and subscribe, and goodbye.